The holidays are about spending time with your loved ones and creating magical memories that will last a lifetime. So whether it's family and friends you haven't seen in a while, or those who you see all the time, share holiday magic this season with an ice-cold Coca-Cola. Copyright 2024, The Coca-Cola Company.
70,000 people are here, and Bob Dylan is the reason for it.
Inspired by the true story.
For anyone who's gonna hold your attention on stage, you have to kind of be a freak.
Are you a freak?
Hope so.
And starring Timothée Chalamet as Bob Dylan. He defied everyone.
Turn it down!
Play loud!
To change everything.
Make some noise, BD.
Timothée Chalamet, Edward Norton, Elle Fanning, Monica Barbaro. A complete unknown. Only in theaters Christmas Day. Rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
For over 50 years, Burlington's legacy has been great deals on coats for all weather conditions. So before you're caught unprepared for the winter weather, head to Burlington for name brands, quality items, and surprising fits for every family member. Stock up on coats, sweaters, and accessories before the cold hits, so you can finally stop avoiding the elements and start living comfortably. Warm up at your nearest Burlington location less than 1 mile away. Burlington. Deals, brands, wow.
Looking for a pickup truck to get just about anything done? Look no further. The Chevy Silverado EV isn't just the most powerful Silverado ever, with next-level towing capability and technology. It also offers game-changing versatility with the available multi-flex midgate and tailgate, which means Silverado EV helps you carry large, bulky, and oddly shaped items up to nearly 11 feet in length. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive. Visit Chevrolet.com to learn more.
Hello and welcome to Islanders Anxiety from Lighthouse Hockey and the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Dan Saracini. Joining me on this Sunday afternoon is my friend Michael Leboff. And Mike, after they lost on Tuesday, I assumed they would lose on Saturday. I assumed that we would be pissed off about it and we would just be completely beside ourselves a few days before Christmas here. But then the funniest thing in the world happened. The Islanders beat the Leafs on Saturday, convincingly, on Hockey Night in Canada, really pants them in their own building. And it was a lot of fun to see. And I'm in a pretty good mood right now, considering all the things the Islanders have put us through. We had a first NHL goal for the first time in a really long time. And so right now I'm pretty happy with the state of the Islanders, although the hill to climb still remains pretty high. After the win over the Leafs on Saturday, how are you feeling about the Islanders as we head into a huge holiday week? Every holiday is starting this week. So how are you feeling about the Islanders?
I am. Yes, you're joined by your friend Michael Leboff and his three-week-old daughter Emmy Lou. So I do apologize for any noises in the background, but logistical issues be that what they may, it's unavoidable. But so I apologize.
Third voice on the show.
Yes, the third chair.
Right.
I do appreciate anyone the patience, but yeah, I agree. I thought last night was about as enjoyable an evening as I could remember from the season. Hockey Night in Canada, the Leafs, they had just beat the Sabres the night before,
right.
So they were looking to sweep a little back to back, and the Islanders were in an advantageous schedule spot for sure, but that just hasn't mattered at all. And the Islanders that showed up last night were like the Islanders that we've been beckoning for all season and for the better part of the last 2+ seasons, which is just go work hard. And we talked about this, whether it was last episode or the one before that, like no one's saying that they're not working their bags off. We know that hockey isn't a sport where everyone who steps out on the ice is working really hard and whatever, but you could see it. Like the Islanders won that game last night because they outworked the Leafs. Like they just outworked them. That game could have gone on for another 7 or 8 days, and the Islanders, I don't think, would have given up the lead because they kept working hard, and it was a win to be proud of. One of a few this season. Last week we put the results from this season in buckets, from losses that were personal attacks to normal losses to feel bad wins, etc. This one certainly goes into the win you could be proud of bucket.
Right.
And honestly, it sets up a very terrifying scenario on Monday with the Sabres coming to town riding a 14-game losing streak. There's so much to go into in the Sabres, but I'll save that for we'll save that for next week. But and just like I think how they're such a good warning for everybody out there in the league, not just Islander fans, about how things can truly go wrong in a salary cap era. But Monday's pretty terrifying because if the Islanders put another foot forward, which they should do, they'll be favorites to win that game on Monday at home against a really downtrodden Sabres team that can't wait to get to the break, I'm sure. All of a sudden things get interesting again, and it's been a while, I think, for us for the Islanders to be interesting, and we can start to wash some of the apathy away. But none of that happens without the effort from last night, which was really great. I loved Patrick Wagh's little stint on Hockey Night in Canada. He did a little interview with Elliot Friedman and was asked about like how much fun he's having, and he, per the man himself, Patrick Waugh, says that they talk every day. Lou is challenging, of course, and he challenges them to be better. Right. But they do talk every day, which is crazy to hear because we were told that these two guys don't talk to one another. They can barely stand the sight of one another, walk in opposite directions. Patrick Waugh's been parking in Lou's parking spot at UBS Arena and the Islanders version of the Ford Performance Center at Northwell. So it's it was honestly just like a really enjoyable night. And we're at the point now with this season and the way that the past few have gone that you kind of have to work hard to enjoy these games, right? Like you have to put all the baggage aside and try to live in the moment and be like, we're beating the crap out of the Leafs in front of this crowd that probably paid a ton of money on a Saturday night, Christmas time, to get into this building, and they're watching the Islanders just run their show. John Tavares is working his tail off to get in front. He's got the amulet on and just he's not breaking through. And Lane Lambert, as he I don't know if they Jonas Siegel and James Myrtle, who cover the Toronto Maple Leafs and have covered the NHL for years, have figured out that Lane Lambert's name is Lane Lambert, so I'm gonna keep referring to him as they did as Lane Lambert. He was on the bench. Like there was like a lot of things to enjoy from a Schadenfreude perspective, from an Islanders playing well perspective, all that. And yet, like, you do have to make a conscious effort not to let the bad stuff and the baggage get in the way of enjoying it.
Yeah, I would say it was one of the most purely enjoyable games of the year, maybe the most purely enjoyable considering who the opponent was. And we had a moment of absolute 100% pure joy that we'll get to in a minute. Before we dive into all of this, we're going to talk about the Carolina game too. We're going to talk about the upcoming games in this first half, and then we're going to get into some fun stuff in the second half, including a Master Leaf Theater and a Ranger Peace Theater, all in the same thing. And we're going to talk about two other folks on the same team that are actually not speaking to each other in kind terms, unlike Watt and Lou, which seem to be okay. Before we dive into all of that, reminder that we are on Patreon at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety. Sign up for ad-free episodes, bonus podcasts, written posts, and a whole lot more, or just join for free, and you can get our weekly release calendar and other announcements. So sign up today at patreon.com/IslandersAnxiety any way you can. Okay, let's, so we had a moment of pure joy. We'll get to one of my favorite things about the win over the Leafs is that it means we don't have to talk a ton about Tuesday night's loss to Carolina. So why don't we just get that out of the way, and then we can just talk about the Leafs game at length. By now, you all know it was a 4-0 loss to the Hurricanes. They scored a power play goal like a few minutes into the game. Andrei Svechnikov, one of the easiest power play goals he's ever going to score in his life, scores, gets behind Brian Pullock and Adam Pelech, more on them in a minute, makes it 1-0. The Islanders had some good shifts in that game in the first period, but it ends up being 2-0 Hurricanes, and you get the sense that they just weren't going to score. Peter Kochetkov was fantastic in this game, take nothing away from him. It was back and forth for the most of the second period, but again, it ends up 4-0 because Tyson Jost gets his own rebound, sticks it past Sorokin, and then Aho on a 2-on-1 makes it 4-0. At that point, the game is totally out of reach. Marcus Hogberg comes in, makes 6 saves, didn't really do a whole lot. And again, Kochetkov, making like poke saves. He was really feeling it in that game. I kind of respected him a little bit. He was really out there doing his thing, and it was pretty cool to see. Except for the fact that I was apoplectically angry at the Islanders. Sorokin wasn't great, but he was kind of hung out to dry. And Matt Barzal was back in the lineup for the first time in 25 games, and you thought they would have had a lot more jump, but you give up that early power play goal, and they were just never really in it. And the fact that it was an ESPN game, and so we had to suffer through John Buccigross and Kevin Weeks, who, ironically, were talking up the Islanders the entire game. Weeks in particular spent a lot of time pumping the Islanders' tires throughout that game, and I'm sitting there just getting madder and madder and madder throughout the entire game. And every time he said something nice about the Islanders, all it did was make me more mad. Because I'm like, somebody please say what's going on here. This team, again, the bad special teams, all the stuff we've been talking about all season long. And so it was just, I was mad at the score, mad at how they played, mad at the broadcast. It was a very, very bad Tuesday, but obviously things were made right for the most part on Saturday. But what was your take on this terrible game? It's already kind of been memory hold. They had like 3 days in between, so we've all kind of forgotten about it already. But if the Leafs game was one of pure joy, a rare moment of pure joy in this season, the Hurricanes game was a more frequent moment of pure anger and resentment and just like, what the hell are we doing out here, guys? It's just frustration and the kind of stuff we've seen all season long.
And we knew that game, where this game was going
right
a week ago. Like we were like, well, we know that this is going to be a blowout. That's what made the Blackhawks situation such a, as frustrating as it was, because we're like, well, you guys are going to get slaughtered by Carolina. We know it, and it's going to be on national TV. It doesn't matter if prime Brian Trottier was coming back into the lineup. Like, they were going to lose that game. They were probably going to lose it by multiple goals. That's exactly what happened. And the broadcast, like you said, was bizarre. It was. It almost made me think that, I don't know if Buccigross and Kevin Weeks just assumed that this was game like 6 of last year's playoff series or something. Like it was so weird the way that right. I had it on mute after like 6 minutes. Like, I just couldn't deal with it anymore. And I saw people tweeting about how they were talking, and like I'd pop back in for a minute and they'd be like, well, man, the Islanders are really buzzing. They're getting a lot of grade A chances. Yeah, those grade A chances are falling on the stick of Hudson Fasching. I think Scott Mayfield had a good look. And Kyle McLean maybe, but like it was a bad game. And what added to the frustration was afterwards. This is basically the theme of our episode last week, right? We were talking about how this team, just the accountability is so weird. After the game, Casey Cizikas was like, yeah, it was frustrating because I don't think we played that bad. Right. Dude, you lost 4-0. You were down 1-0 within like the first 6 minutes because your penalty kill, which you're a part of, is last in the league, historically bad pace, and let up a goal within 4 minutes. If you're down 1-0 within 4 minutes, like, there's a reason why you're going to outshoot any opponent for the rest of the game, because you're playing catch up, and that's what happened. The Islanders did not play well that game. Right. Nobody played well that game. So that was the worst part of the whole thing, right? You had the ESPN pandering. You had the Islanders doing their normal routine afterwards, except Brock Nelson, I think it was Andrew Gross or someone asked him after the game, how much, is there a sense of urgency? How much urgency does the team need to have given their place in the standings now? And he said, he looked dead, whoever asked the question, like, dead in the eye, like, that's a really, isn't that an obvious kind of stupid question? So the answer is going to be a lot. Like, if I said anything else, I'd be lying. And then the next tweet that came from whatever reporter said, it was like, Casey Cizikas says the Islanders actually played pretty well. Like, that's why we're all so frustrated. Like, it's just, let's call it what it is right now. The Islanders aren't playing well. It hasn't been a fun experience, but the way to turn that all around is respond. And that's what they did on Saturday against the odds. I mean, they ended up not being a huge underdog just because of the Matthews news and the schedule spot, but it was a game I did not expect the Islanders to win at all. Yeah. And if you just do that more often, even if this team comes up short, makes a playoff push, finishes on 89 points and finishes in the mushy middle, whatever cliche term you want to call it, if they're putting an honest effort out there and the team looks like they're heading in the same direction, right, wrong, or indifferent, like, we can live with that. We can live with it. But it's when you're talking up, out shooting a team after you lose 4-0 because you got crushed on special teams again, when you're beating hard of the bottom six is saying you played well, even though you lost 4-0. That's the kind of stuff that's been pissing us off. And the elixir to all that is just win, baby. And that's what they did on Saturday. And it felt nice to see because, as you said, that memory holds the Carolina performance. It makes the other stuff a little more forgivable. And now you're looking at a bit of schedule where it's not. I mean, it's terrifying, as I said off the jump. Like it's Buffalo coming Monday, but you're playing one of the worst teams in the league on Monday at home, right before the break, and you can bring yourself to NHL 500 before the Christmas break, and then you have a chance to make some hay on the other side. So there is opportunity here to make an honest effort out of the season, but it just requires more of what we saw on Saturday and a lot less of what we saw on Tuesday from on the ice and the post game stuff.
Yeah. We've talked at length too about how the post game comments, not from just Casey Cizikas, but mainly from Patrick Waugh and Anders Lee, have been so positive about how much they, so close that meanwhile they're getting, the scores are not indicative of that. And it's just like, we can only take so much of that. I mean, Waugh is particularly bad at that and telling us how great it was that they outshot. I mean, that even after the Carolina game, he was like, well, we outshot them, which is not something that most teams do. And it's like, yeah, okay. But that's because, again, you were down 2-0, halfway through the first period. And then of course you're going to outshoot them. But ultimately, I mean, I said this on the last podcast, all the underlying numbers in the world don't mean much if you don't win the game. And, that's another maddening thing about this team is that at 5-on-5, they're pretty good. It's just the special teams have been killing them. And as we'll see in the Leafs game, maybe the best way to, get over having a bad power play and a bad penalty kill is just never take any penalties. It's kind of worked for them, but it was not to be in Carolina. And that was very indicative of again, how their season has gone so far, right down to the post-game comments about how well they played after losing 4-0. So fortunately, we were mad about it. I was mad about it the whole next day. And by the end, then they were doing, another thing I was mad about is they started practicing, and I can't find it now, but Waugh was apparently quoted as saying that he regrets not doing more special teams work during training camp because that's when they had more time to work on it. And, now they're in the bottom of the league in both penalty kill and power play. And it's like, we should have spent more time on that back in October. And it's like, I appreciate the honesty, but come on, man, really? I guess that's supposed to make me feel better. Like, they didn't do it earlier. Well, okay, well, you're here now. So why not fix it? And again, this isn't just a one season problem. This isn't just a problem that they've had for the last 3 months. This is a problem that goes back 2 years. And again, they've had the same power play coach that entire time. So if I'm John McClain, I have a lot of explaining to do, but we're not going to hear from him because it's a Lou Lamoriello rule. Okay, that's enough about the Carolina game. Again, it's been memory hold, and that set up the game on Saturday. Now, again, if you went into this game thinking you weren't going to watch it, I'm right there with you because I only watched the first period myself, and then I switched over to All Elite Wrestling Collision because I wasn't going to let the Islanders ruin my weekend, the first day of my long vacation in between holidays, and I ended up seeing a pretty darn good period. And then I tuned in after it was over and they had won, and I was very happy about it. They got Anthony Duclair back this time, and something I noticed, you mentioned no Austin Matthews in the game. He had gotten hurt in the previous night's game in Buffalo, and the Leafs were on a back-to-back. But Duclair back was one thing, and getting healthy is obviously something that is going to help the Islanders. Arthur Staple mentioned that in his post-game tweet. But I found something before we even get to the game. I found something really interesting about how the lines were set up before the game. So when the season had started, it was Horvat, Barzal, and Duclair on one line, and then all the other lines behind it. But that wasn't how Patrick Waugh went this time. And I got to give him a lot of credit because I feel like this lineup actually might be sort of the optimal lineup for the Islanders. At least it seemed like that way in this one game. So the first line was Nelson between Duclair and Palmieri. Nelson and Palmieri are always together, but putting Duclair there was sort of new. Then on the second line, you have Barzal with Lee and Pajot. Pajot had spent most of his time as a center. Now, when Barzal gets hurt, he's a winger, but now he's still a winger and Barzal's back and Barzal's his center. And then the third line, you had Horvat, Holmstrom, and who was on the side? Siplikov on the other side, who combined for 2 goals in the first period. And then the fourth line was Cizikas back at center with McLean and Fashing. And again, this is totally different. Cizikas had been a third line winger for a while there. McLean was at center. Now McLean's at wing and center. And Cizikas is his center. Again, Horvat had been center, but now he's centering like a quote unquote third line. But it really wasn't. Siplikov had played with Nelson and Palmieri obviously a lot. Now he's playing with Horvat and Holmstrom. Anyway, my point is that I looked at these lines before the game and I was like, wow, this kind of makes sense. I never liked the idea of Barzell being on the wing. I definitely didn't like the idea of Cizikas being on the wing. And I'm like, this seems to, if this works and they play well in this game, this might be a lineup that's pretty darn good and very, very strong, in particular down the middle, which is obviously key to winning. What did you make before we even get to the game? Did you see that little graphic they put up before the game? And what did you think of how these lines shook out? Because I actually made these lines made me excited to watch the game in a way that I hadn't been in the preceding 3 days between the loss in Carolina and the puck drop on Saturday night.
Yeah, the two things I took away from it were Max Siplikov and Simon Holmstrom are really good NHL players right now. Like when Siplikov got off to the start he did and was turning some heads with Nelson and Palmieri, I was like, okay, well, you got to ease the guy in. You can't just you got to keep him taped next to Nelson and Palmieri. He's found a good home. You want to make it as easy as the guy as possible as he transitions to the new league, etc. Man, he's moved him up and down the lineup, and he's been as effective on each line. It doesn't matter who he's playing with. He's such a good NHL player. He's so good at buying time. He's very good at zone entries and like buying time once again when he enters the zone to allow the third or fourth man on the rush to catch up, and super smart, good shot, good hands. So that was the first thing I thought. Like Patrick Waugh obviously thinks probably correctly that Max Siplikov can play with anybody right now. Right. Same goes for Simon Holmstrom. And the fourth or fifth goal yesterday, both of those guys were ridiculous, had an unbelievable shift. It ended up going off of either Bo Horvat or the defenseman who was covering him from Noah Dobson.
Right.
Siplikov got buried behind the net. The puck rims around. Holmstrom steals it on what was pretty easy breakout for the Leafs, but Holmstrom was in the perfect spot. Good stick, stops it. The Islanders are able to recycle. It's the type of goal that if Simon Holmstrom was playing against the Islanders, as soon as he steals that puck, you're like, oh, this is going in the back of the net. If someone's going to break a stick, it's going to go off of Adam Pelech's elbow into the back of the net. Pelech will be out for 6 weeks. But to see it happen for the Islanders against the Leafs was great. I thought it was one of the shifts of the season, and it was rewarded. And yeah, those three guys together, like Horvat, Siplikov, and Holmstrom, man, I couldn't think of like a more Franken line that I could like. It would make no sense in my head coming up with it, but it certainly looked great on the ice. Pajot, Lee, and Barzell looked really good together. Pajot and Lee have been really good all season, and you got to let the Duclair, Palmieri, Nelson line kind of just work out if it's going to work. And so, yeah, a tidy piece of coaching from Patrick Waugh. I thought that basically all four forward lines for the first time this season were really good. Yeah. Even like the Cizikas, McLean. Like McLean's been better, I think, the past couple of weeks. Cizikas not yet, but yesterday was probably his best game. They played with Fasching, who was fine too. I thought that as a fourth line, like they did just fine going up against the Leafs fourth line. The only issue was really like the only players who I thought had a pretty poor game were Pelech and Polak. Yeah. Which has been a kind of a trend, but all in all, like that was as the Islanders might have found something here in the nick of time, and we'll see if they can. As I was saying before, it's hard. You have to work hard to see through the baggage and just enjoy a win, because one of the first thoughts I was thinking was, wow, that's the type of win that this team should be able to build off of, but this team just doesn't do that this season. They've won 2 games in a row twice all season. Yeah. They haven't won 3 in a row yet. Like they need to find a way to turn this 1-game winning streak into 3 or 4. Yeah. To get us back excited before the turn of the calendar. So, but those were all good signs, and everyone seems to kind of be healthy. The Islanders had some bite to their game for the first time in a while. And I mean, now we just hope that maybe the cursed part of the season is over, but we know that's usually asking too much when it comes to the Islanders.
Ethan Sears in his post-game thing was like, well, if they play like this, then they could make up that gap in the playoffs pretty quickly. And I was like, let's just slow down a little bit there, young man. I don't know if I'm ready to go that far yet, but it was a great win. And I'll get to Pelech and Pulick in a minute. And I think, like you said, one of the things I thought was the fourth line was really good. They had a bunch of shifts where they pinned the Leafs in their own zone, which is what we in particular were used to from the fourth line for a long, long time. And I would say it definitely was Cizikas' best game of the year. And, maybe McLean would be better off at wing. He struggled a lot this season so far, and maybe putting him back at wing is going to be helpful. I could see people arguing, I thought Fashing was good, but I could see people arguing, if you had Engvall on that line, maybe they get a little bit more offense out of it, but maybe that's something to explore for another time. But I thought the lines were really good. And right off the bat, they proved to be pretty, really the right call. I mean, the Islanders were up 2-0 5 minutes into the game. First it was Siplikov from Horvat, who was behind the net. Then Horvat risks her on 2-on-1. I forget who was on this side. It might have been Holmstrom. I'm not sure. It's 2-0 Leafs. Craig Berube calls a timeout. He's yelling at the Leafs, whatever. William Nylander gets a pass to Kyle Palmieri, scores on a backhander, makes it 2-1, and you're like, all right, here we go. But the Islanders kind of wrested the game back from the Leafs, and just before the end of the period, Pajot scores off Lee. Lee gets he gets a shot off, a turnaround shot. Rebound goes right to Pajot, and Joe Wall was kind of falling or whatever, makes it 3-1. Might have been their best period of the entire season. I gotta be honest with you. It was really, really good. And I was actually satisfied being like, okay, I'm going to turn this off and I'm going to go watch something else now for 2 hours. When I came back, I watched, the condensed game and the highlights and stuff, and found, what happened the rest of the way. The Leafs did make a 3-2 and another Nylander goal, but this was kind of the first Pelech-Pulock mess up of the game. It was kind of a bad exchange. It might have been more on Pulock than Pelech, but whatever happened, it ends up on Nylander's stick, and he's falling, and he scores. Well, actually, ends up on David Kamp's stick. He passes to Nylander, who's falling, scores. It was a nice goal. But again, the Islanders kind of take the period back over the course of the next whatever it was 10 minutes, and then the third period, the Islanders just take over. And this is where I think this is what made the game so satisfying, and ultimately is because, and I'll get back to this when we talk about Buffalo in a few minutes, is that the Islanders decided to finally step on somebody's neck and be like, nope, we're taking this. Duclair, beautiful cross-ice pass to Isaiah George, who whips it into the far corner of the post, makes it 4-2. It's his first NHL goal, and this is what I was alluding to before. The looks, this has been a long season, right? It's been a long season for us. I'm sure the players feel it's been a long season. I know they're, we just talked about how positive they are after losses, after games, but I'm sure they're all sitting around thinking like, man, we got to stop doing this kind of stuff. The looks on everybody's faces. I mean, yeah, obviously Isaiah George, but like the looks on Duclair's face and Nelson's face, Palmieri getting the puck out of the net, bringing it over to the bench. George goes back to the bench. Like Pelech's got this huge, you can see the huge smile on Pelech's face through that, like, plastic cage he's wearing. Mayfield's like tapping him on the head. Everybody's coming over and congratulating him. This might have been, in game 37 or whatever the hell it was. This might have been the biggest, most undistilled, pure moment of joy in this entire season, was seeing this kid, 20 years old, from Toronto, grew up a half hour away, went to the arena to see all kinds of concerts and Leafs games and stuff, get his first NHL goal in front of all those people, and seeing the Islanders like legit super excited and happy for this kid made me happy in a way that almost nothing has this entire season. And I appreciate it. And I was just so happy to see this kid get this goal and see that his teammates so happy for him. And again, Palmieri getting the puck and everything. It was awesome. It was just awesome. Yeah. So I want to pause here and ask, your thoughts on the George goal. It's a beautiful goal too. I mean, great play by Duclair to get him the puck, cross ice pass and whip it in. But boy, what a moment. Just awesome to see that. We haven't seen this stuff like this in a long, long, long time.
Exactly. I think the players probably feel the same way. It's just like the way the Islanders are and they're built and the way they go about their business. It's just, there's not much room for them to have moments like this, because like Max Siplikov and Isaiah George are the only two rookies on the team.
Right.
Very rarely do we see young players kind of crack the lineup for a meaningful amount of time where they can get these moments. It's been a while for this to happen. I know Siplikov had that one against Utah, but that was within like 4 minutes left in the game, and we know how that ended. So this time, at least, like it was, not only was it, a huge goal for him personally, but also ends up being the game-winning goal and gave him some breathing room. And and he's just been so good and such a breath of fresh air. You can just tell that this guy he's got all the tools to be a really good NHL player, and the team certainly is kind of galvanized around helping him get there, which is great. will also love to mention some Schadenfreude kind of stuff that I've had in the back of my head. I remember last year, like, of course, the Islanders are always ranked either 32nd or 33rd in terms of prospect rankings. Not kidding. You can look that up. They were ranked by one scouting service 33rd because this particular scouting service does their own team, which I don't know. So the Islanders had the 33rd ranked farm system.
Weren't they like guys the Leafs would have drafted?
Something like that. Yeah, exactly. It was like if we ran the Leafs.
Right.
What an industry in sport. The Athletic prospect writer Scott Wheeler, his rankings last year. I don't subscribe, so I can't. It's hard for me to like get it exactly right. But he had George ranked 12th last January, so a year. That was behind Simon Holmstrom, who he had ranked 5th. He had some people I honestly have never heard of ahead of both these guys. So for George to do that in what was, he's played a meaningful amount of games, obviously. In Toronto was a lot of fun. First people I thought of were outside of Islander stuff was Scott Wheeler and the prospect grifters who just have never really even talked about this guy. And I remember when he broke into the Islanders lineup, he got some credit, but you've heard very little about it since. And then, of course, there was the walk-off interview after the game, which he did with 32 Thoughts co-host Kyle Bukauskas.
That's right.
Who quickly got the Islander stuff out of the way to make sure he asked the more important question, which was, what are your thoughts about this building? Hey, man, this is where the Toronto Maple Leafs play,
Right. Pretty
cool that you did it here. And I know like he was a Leafs fan growing up, and he went to Toronto, or he's from Toronto, the Toronto area, the GTA. And as he said, he's been to a lot of stuff in the building, but I just thought it was great that it was, hey, like real quick, just who's a goal, name some of your teammates, and then tell us about how this affects the Leafs.
I just kind of found that soft spot, low to high, and then shot it on that.
Yeah, and then it goes in. Now, I was wondering, for you from Oakville, what memories do you have of this building growing up?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a place to go for events. I mean, Leafs games, coming here as a kid, concerts. So, yeah, I mean, I've been here quite a bit, and it's pretty cool now to be able to play here. So,
what did you say to your family before this game tonight?
Nothing really, to be honest. It was my sister's birthday this weekend, so we were celebrating her birthday. So we weren't really talking too much hockey, to be honest.
What's your sister's name?
Alexandra.
Right,
Turned 19. Happy birthday.
So I thought that was quite funny, but yeah, I mean, he's been great, man. He's a fan favorite already. That's the funny thing about these two, Siplikov and George, the two rookies. They've really had an impact on the fan base too. I feel like it's been a while since the Islanders have had rookies who've done that. Because Simon Holmstrom, when he came up, was a little bit of a learning curve, for sure, and he hadn't really found his game in the NHL level just yet. So there was, he was a little bit polarizing. So I mean, you could say Sorokin, I guess, but the last time like a young rookie really galvanized this fan base, I guess, was Devon Taves. When he came shot out of a cannon. I'm trying to rack my brain for someone else, and I honestly can't think of one. So
I mean, Sorokin, I guess, but even still, he had kind of a learning curve. He's in the he was with them in the bubble, but he didn't play.
Right. Yeah, and also like Varlamov was still the starter, so it was But the point is, it's been a while, and I think Islander fans, for whatever reason, like they'll find a way to make it. Yes, you're an Islander fan, but the way you talk about the Islanders and the team makes it sound like you're rooting for them to lose, which is a little strange right now. Like the fan base is in a weird spot. I would advise you just to root for the team that you root for, rather to root against them. But who am I to tell anyone how to be a fan? But you could see people saying things about basically every player being on either side of the aisle. Except for those two, Siplikov and George. I think it's just been all positive for both those guys since they broke into the lineup. That's really rare for this team, given where it is right now. So, really cool moment. As you said, like Nelson gave me the puck, or Palmieri gave me the puck. Scott Mayfield telling him to get it. I really was upset that I didn't have the Hockey Night feed, because I would have loved to hear Chris Cuthbert call that goal. I'm sure I can look it up pretty
Right.
easily. Yeah, there was also a great tweet from Luke Fox Jukebox afterwards where he's took a picture of Kyle Bukauskas, his teammate, interviewing Isaiah George, and said, "quote unquote dream come true." I was like, I don't know if you know who this guy is, Luke, but yes.
Yeah. I'm sure Isaiah George was like, I can't wait to get interviewed by 32 Thoughts co-host Kyle Bukauskas after a game.
Who's this other guy taking a picture of me while I'm getting
Yeah,
interviewed? Like,
exactly.
weren't there enough pictures taken of me during the game? I don't think this one's gonna make
Right.
Getty.
Well, Luke Fox, he's obviously keeping his eyes on the prize. That's the thing everybody cares about. Media members interviewing players. That's the important thing there.
Yeah, Luke Fox is a master of a lot of
Yes.
arts. Obviously, is the Jane Austen of Masterly Theater, of course. But he has the market covered on taking videos from his press box cell phone, his cell phone in the press box of welcome back videos.
Yeah.
When the Leafs go to new places, which is also great because the team's going to tweet this out in a little bit.
Right.
Luke, I don't think you got to worry about this. This isn't 2007. Stefan Robida is back in the building. And, here's the nice tribute that the Dallas Stars gave him. And the other thing is he's also very good at tweeting about pictures like this with almost like weird context. Like the quote or little context where it's just dream come true, Isaiah George. Like, thank you, Luke. That was very, very helpful coverage. Now back to Easton Cowan's farm with you, where the real stories are.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and writing more articles about John Tavares, which we'll get to in a little bit. But yeah, no, it was great. And actually, it's funny you mentioned too, like, the rarity of it was, Barzell talked after the game that they were super excited for the kid because they haven't had a rookie. It's the first time in a long, long time that they've had a rookie score his first NHL goal, and so they were all really excited for him. So no, it was cool, and it was just, again, perfectly distilled joy that, again, we have not felt a lot at all this season. But that wasn't, and it would, you're right, it would stand up to be the game-winning goal, but that wasn't the end because Simon Holmstrom gets a takeaway. Like you said, Dobson shoots the puck. At first, it was credited to Horvat, but then I guess they took a look at it. Eventually, Dobson gets it. First, it looked like it went off of Horvat's leg. Then it looked like it went off of maybe Bobby McMahon, who was sitting in front. I don't know. Whatever it was 5-2 Islanders at that point. The Leafs would get one more. Again, McMahon. Adam Pelech, who, like you said, had a really tough game. There's always, it wasn't a perfect game as good as it was, but Pelech and Pulick kind of struggled a little bit. Failed to clear, and it went to Mitch Marner, who found McMahon and made it 5-3. But a beautiful play by Anders Lee and Barzell. Lee with a block on some Leaf in the front, trying to get it through. Goes right to Barzell, who crosses the red line and gets empty net goal. Imagine that for a 6-3 win. Sorokin made 26 saves, was very, very good. Joe Wall made 28. It's, I guess, not as good, to be honest with you. But again, no penalties taken by either team. I saw some Leafs fans crowing on Blue Sky about, they put the whistles away when you play against the Leafs. Well, guess what? The Islanders didn't get any power plays either. And if they had, you probably would have been better off had the Islanders gotten a power play because it's pretty terrible. But in all seriousness, all the underlying numbers are in favor of the Islanders. This was an ass whooping from beginning to end. I know it was 6-3 is, a pretty decisive score, but it was probably even worse than that because the Leafs just didn't have it. The Islanders were very strong throughout. And my final note on my document here is LOL, which I think we could all probably agree with. No, it was great. And, I forget how many feel good wins we've had this season, but it wasn't many. The Colorado game, I think, was one. That was the first one. And then I don't even know how many.
Colorado, Vancouver. We were tracking it one a month. I think we're probably at like 1.75 a month now. So
yeah.
Things are going to the right direction.
Right. Oh, the win against the Blues, the home Saturday night win against the Blues was really good. And the shutout over the Sabres a week later. So that's it. So 4 out of whatever it is, 37 games so far this season would be considered feel good wins. The rest of them, not so much. But so final thoughts on the huge win. Again, it cannot be stated well enough that this was a Hockey Night in Canada game. So people all across Canada are going to sit and watch this and sit down and expect the Leafs to come out and house the shitty, grubby, disgusting, peasants from Long Island. And that was not what they got. And I for one could not be happier that they were disappointed in the
exactly
result.
Yep, there's a massive audience up there watching on Hockey Night, and they've been told that the coach and GM don't talk.
Hmm.
They're getting a pre-scout or a good look at their soon-to-be number 2 center,
Right.
Brock
Yeah.
Nelson, who they've already claimed.
I've heard they boo John Tavares on Long Island. Could you imagine that? Who would boo this man?
Yeah.
He's so lovely.
Yeah, they got to give him a rousing applause on one of the assists to really show it. The despots came in and stole 2 points from right under their nose, and in front of a great audience, and we're going to hear all about the because now 32 Thoughts has just turned into a what would it be, a Refinery 29 or Jezebel or what's like a TV
Gossip
AV
website?
Club? Yeah,
Gawker,
basically
yeah.
reviewing Hockey Night in Canada every Monday morning. They just talk about the production, the costumes, the montage. So we're going to hear all about that, and probably very little about the Islanders. Maybe Isaiah George gets a mention, but that's going to be about it. So perfect night on Hockey Night in Canada for the Isles.
Yeah, I would say so as well. And so that was it. That was the Islanders' only week, was those 2 games. One very, very bad and one very, very good. And so we can talk about the upcoming games because there's only 3, and they're only against the same 2 opponents. We've been dancing around it. Monday night, the day you're probably listening to this, the Islanders will play the Buffalo Sabres at UBS Arena. It's a 7:30 start. Then they'll have 4 days off. It's actually a 13-game losing streak for the Sabres. You said 14 before. With any luck, the Islanders will make it 14, but that's, going to be kind of a tall order for these guys. And then the Islanders have a home next weekend against the Penguins. Saturday night, 7:30 at UBS Arena, and then the next day, 5:30. They get less than 2 hours. I guess a 22-hour turnaround time. They're playing in Pittsburgh. These two, it actually works out in kind of an interesting way because these 3 games are going to be very indicative of how I think the rest of this season is going to go. Because as we talked before, the Islanders don't really have a great track record, particularly of all the things that they're missing this season. One of them has been a killer instinct. They are maybe the nicest team in the NHL. They let teams off the hook very easily. Their special teams are terrible. They're not particularly physical most of the time, although they were against the Leafs. So when a team comes in with a 13-game losing streak, for most teams, they would see this as an opportunity to continue that losing streak and squash these guys before they even have a chance to hit the ice. The Islanders generally don't do that. If they do that to the Sabres and make that a 14-game losing streak, I think that'll go a long way towards maybe making things a little bit more exciting. And then, we all have a nice holiday. And then the same thing can go for those Penguins games. The Penguins are directly ahead of them in the standings. They've run off a bunch of wins. I believe they're 8-2 in their last 10. I don't know if they played last night or played today, but they've put together a winning streak, which should not be surprising to anybody listening to this. Although apparently it was surprising to some Penguins friends on Blue Sky who was like, "I don't know, they've been pretty bad this year." I'm like, dude, you don't understand. I knew they were going to go on a winning streak this season because they always go on a winning streak every season. And they're in the middle of that right now. Again, I don't know if the Islanders can take both of these games, but if they do, now you got me excited for the rest of the season. And then guess what? New Year's Eve, during the day, they have another matchup with the Leafs again in Toronto. So, I wouldn't expect the Islanders to win that game. I'm sure the Leafs are going to, have better. They'll probably have Austin Matthews in the lineup, but these 3 games and really 4 games are really going to show us what this team wants to do. I'm not ready to put my hat, my playoff hat back on, but if they can win, we'll talk about the next Leafs game next week. But man, if they can take all 6 of these points, or even 4 or 5 out of these points, I think we might be looking at a pretty exciting second half. But it starts with, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, beating a team that has lost 13 straight games. I know it sounds crazy. What are you talking about? Of course, no. This is the Islanders. You don't understand. That is terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. Yeah. So please beat the Sabres, make them lose 14 straight games going into Christmas. And then we can maybe talk about what's going on. Where are you at going into this Sabres game? You said terrified before, so yeah. I'm assuming you kind of feel the same way.
Easily scariest game of the season since the home opener. Right. And probably scarier than that. Because of the opponent, and I got to correct you because Pierre LeBrun would be absolutely cross with you right now because you keep referring to it as a losing streak, and I think I might have too. But it's actually it's a winless streak.
I apologize.
He keeps correcting people online that yes, this is a winless streak, not a losing streak. And if you get that wrong, Pierre will be out there. Pierre is he's a Grinch about this kind of stuff, and he's been sure to be on Twitter all over the place to make sure to correct. But yeah, losing this game on Monday would all the goodwill that they built up with this one game winning streak would just be out the door. So it would be completely out the window, and it would take a monumental effort for them to get back into the good graces of the fan base, because you have a chance to get back to NHL 500 it's not the halfway point, but we're getting close, and you can say, all right, look, they're at 500. The East has been such a mess. If they've got two wins in a row, we've been saying forever, all this takes is one 5-game winning streak, and you're kind of in the driver's seat for one of these playoff spots, and they're now 2/5 of the way there with a couple of huge games against the Penguins coming up and one against the Leafs, who they just beat. And then on the other side of the new year, the schedule softens up a little bit too. It's not terrible. There's an opportunity here, but the linchpin is the Sabres game, and that couldn't be scarier. This team is going to come in, and they're either going to look at this game as one of two ways. I want to skate through the motions and just get to the break because we're winless in 13, Pierre, or it's hell, let's go boss the wall and just end this thing before Christmas.
Yeah, and
I'd expect it to be the latter, and you just don't trust the Islanders in these situations ever.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a horrifying game on Monday. I couldn't be more scared, because if they do win that game, you said your playoff hat won't. You gotta wait a little bit while before you get it back on. I'll definitely dust mine off, but for sure to start believing again. But I don't have any faith that they're gonna beat this team that's lost 13 in a row.
Right. Well, in fairness, they haven't earned it. Again, we're talking here about a Leafs game that was very satisfying and a lot of fun and a great win. Take nothing away from them, but that comes hot on the heels of a 4-0 loss in Carolina, a 5-3 loss in regulation in Chicago, a 5-4 win in which you gave up 3 goals in the third period in quick succession again to Chicago, one of the worst teams at that point in the league. You lost 3-1 to the Kings before that. They had beaten the Senators before that and beaten the Hurricanes at home. So you're talking about a 4-game losing streak that sort of supersedes this 1-game quote unquote winning streak. So yeah, they haven't earned that trust, but I think, again, come out. And I mean, if they're up 4-0 on the Sabres in the first period, I think that'd be great. I'm not going to be too excited until the final whistle, but I think that would be a great sign there. And again, they haven't played well at home. They've barely played at home at all this season. And when they have, it hasn't really all been that great. Again, they did have the win over the Sabres and the Blues, but those are about it as far as feel good moments at UBS Arena. And then what's your take on the Penguins right now? I know you're like me. You just assume that they were going to go on a winning streak anyway. A lot of times it happens towards the end of the season, and then it looks like they might have a shot at the playoffs, and then a Peter Mrazek shows up and pulls the rug out from under them. Now they've kind of gotten it going in the fall or early winter. I'm not surprised to see this team put it together, but again, this team isn't that good. And if they can play the Penguins the way they played the Leafs, I don't see why the Islanders couldn't win both of these games. Although again, it's a back-to-back, so you never know. But their Penguins are going to be at a back-to-back too, so you never know how it's going to shake out. But what's your take on this game in particular, and sort of how the Penguins have sort of turned things around in the last little bit?
Yeah, you're not a hockey fan if you're not impressed with what Sidney Crosby and rooting for Sidney Crosby to get this.
Never
team
bet against Sidney Crosby, Friedge.
Yes, it's just everybody loves him. Nobody wants to see him hang him up. Especially not the teams that he's been torturing for 20 years. So
right,
those guys aren't real hockey fans. Yeah, I mean, we knew this was coming, and you just hope that there's like another shoe to drop where they kind of flounder in a hilarious fashion, and we get to enjoy some Master Penn's theater, because this team has that potential. I do hope we get to see Tristan Jarry in goal for sure. I know we'll obviously likely get at least one night of Tristan, so that'll be fun. But I'll put it this way: I'm not worried about the Penguins just yet. I like the teams I'm trying to set my eye on to catching. I think that right now it looks like the 2 wild card spots. Like it's Boston, Ottawa, the Rangers, those are the teams that I'm kind of zeroing in on to try to pass them. I think those are the ones that will be earnestly competing for if they do make a playoff push. That might sound foolish in a couple weeks if the Penguins continue at this road, but to be honest, like I don't even know if I'm going to care about these Penguins games because it all comes out to Monday. Like if the Islanders do win against the Sabres, these are turned into playoff games, and if they lose, it's going to be game one of like a 6-game process to get me back into caring about them.
Right.
But yeah, obviously we love to see the Penguins struggling long. Hopefully, that this is the blip and the struggles were legitimate. But yeah, it's I'm just sick of everyone counting them out like around this time and then them doing this. What's funny is last year they saved this long winning streak for the very end of the season.
Right. Yeah.
And this year they're doing it at their more normal time. They usually do it right around the holidays, and so everyone can go into the Christmas feeling grateful that they still have Sidney Crosby in their life. Thankful that I still have Sid. Because you're not a hockey fan if you're not thankful for all his exploits. But I'm not too worried about them in the big picture just yet. Those 2 games will be gigantic if the Islanders can win on Monday.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Sidney Crosby is a gift to most hockey fans, but to us, he's just a walking, living, breathing 600 whatever goal lump of coal. And I think we can all agree it's just the worst Christmas present we could ever hope for.
Yeah. And he's that holding call against Brian Strayed in overtime in 2013, unforgivable offense. Right. So yeah, why doesn't every hockey fan love Sidney Crosby? I'll show you the tape exactly.
Yeah. Oh wait, Sid's missed how many games with an injury? Oh, he's back tonight. Oh, they're playing the Islanders. Oh, all right. Well, then he'll score 2 goals in the first minute of the game. Yeah, okay, I remember that too. So, anyway, so there you go. So huge win, couple of huge games coming up, but in between the holiday break, and I think we're going to learn a lot about this team. I mean, they're healthy now, which is great, and I would like to think that they look at themselves now and are like, okay, they alluded to this on the broadcast too, like, okay, there's no time to screw around now. We're done. We have to focus here. And is there enough runway to make the playoffs right now? Yes, there is. Do I trust them to take advantage of it right now? No, I don't. But show me something on Monday and we'll see. Okay, we're going to take a break and then we're going to come back and we're going to have a lot of holiday fun talking Leafs, talking Rangers, who made a big deal last week, talking about some strife out on the West Coast, which is a lot of fun as well. And just whatever we feel like to clear the decks before the holidays. So meet us on the other side. Thanks. And now a word from our sponsors. First is always VintageIceHockey.com, where you can get t-shirts, hoodies, jerseys, and more featuring over 100 classic hockey logos. Vintage Ice Hockey now carries a full line of Islanders Anxiety merch featuring our blue and orange brain logo, as well as our Al Arbor and the Island shirts. And as always, our portion of the sales go directly to the Center for Dementia Research. That is VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project. They offer a Rosé, a Pinot Grigio, and a Pinot Noir that was named a Top 100 Best Buy by Wine Enthusiast magazine. All are delicious, priced at less than $15 a bottle, and available at local wine shops and at UBS Arena. Learn more at thepinotproject.com. Please drink responsibly.
Hey, it's Austin James. If you're like me, trying to live your best life while living with diabetes, you can relate to worrying if you're doing a good job managing your diabetes. I use the Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor to get real-time glucose readings and see the impact of every meal and activity to make better decisions. The Freestyle Libre 3 Plus sensor can help me live life with diabetes on my own terms, and it gives me more time for the things I love, like being a dad and a musician. Now this is progress. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
For prescription only. Safety info found at freestylelibre.us.
This episode is brought to you by AWS. Amazon Q Business is the new generative AI assistant from AWS. Many tasks can make business slow, like wading through mud. Help! Luckily, there's a faster, easier, less messy choice. Amazon Q can securely understand your business data to help you streamline tasks, like summarizing quarterly results or doing complex analyses in no time. Q got this. Learn what Amazon Q Business can do for you at aws.com/learn more.
Future you faces some big expectations. Work out more, go to bed earlier, and most importantly, make smart money decisions. Thankfully, today you has Bank of America. One place with tools and guidance to help balance tasks from budgeting to saving. So you can just be you with big plans. Do more with the bank that asks, what would you like the power to do? Explore our tips and more at bankofamerica.com/futureyou.
This year, Santa's bringing the power of Energizer into his workshop.
Whoa, the Energizer Bunny's got so much power.
Wait, he's powered up all the toys. I think that means we're done for the year.
I love this bunny.
He's the hardest working helper the North Pole has ever seen. And he wants all your gifts to have the power of the #1 longest lasting AA battery. So this holiday season, stock up on Santa's and the elves' favorite battery, Energizer Ultimate Lithium.
So all that Islander stuff is out of the way. We can do our favorite thing, which is trashing other teams in the funniest way possible with a couple of our favorite segments. And we will start closer to home with the New York Rangers, who made a huge trade last week, ending the Capo Caco era, which I know was very exciting for a brief minute or so. And this has brought up all kinds of fun articles and people getting really kind of grandiose about it. And we are proud to present. I know it's we've had a few of these, but man, sometimes they just write themselves. And so once again, we are proud to present a new episode of Ranger Peace Theater. Okay, so this is one of yours. You have had this at the ready, and I'm excited to hear your rendition of this. So first, what article is this, and who wrote it?
This is by a rising star of the genre, Molly Walker from the New York Post. The Rangers ended their skid. Their crisis ended in Dallas with a 2-1 win over the Stars on Friday night. Right. The Rangers killed 7 penalties off. Credit to them, by the way. Yeah. I was watching this game, and I knew the Rangers were going to kill off every penalty, including the major, which is a subject of our Ranger Peace Theater. But because that's what they do. Like, the Rangers kill penalties. I think their penalty kill the past 2 seasons has been first or second and remains there. It's incredibly frustrating, especially when you're rooting for a team that's 30 percentage points behind them about it. Because I was watching this game thinking, man, if the Stars had 7 power plays, including a major, so you're looking at 17 minutes of power play time. Boy, this game would 8 or 9-0. Like Patrick Waugh might be in goal just to give Sorokin and Marcus Hogberg a breather because it's gotten so ugly. But the most important note from this game was that fourth liner Matt Rempe got called back up.
Oh, right.
Yes, Matt Rempe. He is a fourth line player in the NHL and one of the superstars of the game, perhaps the face of the team, the league, and the league needs to do a better job marketing its stars like Matt Rempe, even if he's in Hartford playing for the Wolfpack for most of the season. So Rempe gets called back up, and this is what's going to drag the Rangers out of their malaise, because they don't lose with Rempe in the lineup. He's a key contributor in the 4 or 5 minutes of ice time he gets. And the scene was set. I mean, everybody was really excited to watch this burgeoning star take the ice. And the title of this article is Rempe Makes Impact Before Game Misconduct Ejection. Dateline Dallas. There was a lot to like about Matt Rempe's first game back with the Rangers in 3.5 weeks until the 22-year-old rookie was thrown out for the 4th time in his 22nd career NHL game. Rempe drew 3 penalties in the second period alone, in addition to posting 5 hits and 1 shot on goal in 5 minutes and 27 seconds of ice time in the Blue Shirts' 3-1 win over the Stars on Friday night at American Airlines Center. After drilling Miro Heiskanen into the boards from behind and knocking the Stars defenseman to the ice, however, Rempe became the center of a scuffle in front of Dallas's bench because his right elbow came up on the hit. Rempe earned a 5-minute major and a game misconduct to end his night. I don't know if I've ever heard, especially in this day of age of the NHL, where we're kind of conscious about concussions and all that. I've never heard a player getting kicked out of a game portrayed as a positive before. And this article does such a good job of positioning it as if, of course, it was a good game for the guy. He played 5 minutes and 27 seconds, and he only got kicked out once. That's it. Like, come on, what are you expecting? And I love the little line in there, for the 4th time in his 22nd game. Yeah, he's having a positive impact on the ice, despite this once in a blue moon occurrence that happens once every 5 games.
This to me is a great example of like shoehorning. Like, it's almost like somebody's like, you know what gets clicks? Matt Rempe. So make sure that no matter what happens in this game, you get Rempe right up front so that we can get some clicks to, drive traffic to the story. Because to me, this, and to you and to most people listening to this or watching the game, I think this would be kind of a side story to the whole thing, and like maybe even worth its own article. Like, Rangers win, but Rempe gets kicked out for yet another, ill-advised play and a hit. But no, in this case, the ill-advised play and hit was integral to the Rangers winning the game.
It's also a little footnote in the story. Him getting kicked out for the 4th time in the 22nd game of his career. Right. That's just right. We can look right past that. It's just, we're going to jot it down because it's important to get the facts down in these stories when we're reporting on them. But that's not the story here. It's not that this guy's been kicked out for the 4th time in 22 NHL games, and the league and the media gets in a lather about him. They foam at the mouth every time he gets called up from Hartford or plays a game or steps on the ice. They're chanting Rempe in the Garden. Oh, but he's also been kicked out of 4 games in 22 NHL games. Like, that's not nice. That's pretty poor behavior, I would say.
Yes, I would think so. Yeah,
that's what we got to market. We got to market that stuff for sure.
Yeah.
What?
I don't know. It's so weird how people treat this guy. Like, I just don't. And we can't forget too that the Islanders, I don't want to say are at fault in this, but they were involved in the sort of like, coming of Rempe, because the fight with Matt Martin at the outdoor game was sort of what, kind of brought him to everybody's attention. But boy, oh boy, it's almost like we were joking about the Crosby thing before and how we're all supposed to love Sidney Crosby. But like, in all fairness, at least Sidney Crosby's accomplished stuff, right? Like that is an argument that I can buy. It pisses us off because we're Islanders fans, and this guy's made a career out of, humiliating the Islanders, much like Jaromir Jagr and much like Mario Lemieux before him. But like with Rempe, we're supposed to love this guy. And meanwhile, I'm like, I don't even know if this guy should be playing in the NHL. And the play, by the way, in case, it didn't come through in the article, is like, he basically got 2 penalties in the same play. Cause like he hit a guy against the boards and then he elbowed another guy in the face. So it's like, what are we doing? Why are you doing this? What is going on? And then like you said, when they send him down to Hartford, they get, wow, what are you doing? And it's not just like fans. Like, fans are morons, especially Rangers fans. But like, it's like Larry Brooks is getting upset because they sent him down to Hartford. What are they doing?
It's most of the media that right. Not just follows the Rangers, but just generally. Like, I'm sure that ESPN loves it when he's in the lineup because they think it's why people are tuning into the game. Even though
they asked Matt Barzell about that. Remember the game?
Right? Yeah.
He's like, I don't know.
No, we didn't really game plan for that guy. He's going to play 3. But and this to flip this on its head, let's pretend that Matt Rempe plays for the Tampa Bay Lightning and has been kicked out of 4 games in 24 times in his first 22 games as an NHLer. I mean, there are pitchforks and out at Julian Breezeborough's front door to get this guy kicked out of the league. Or if he's like on Vegas or a team with that kind of reputation. Right. Oh my God, this has no place in the game, but because it's the Rangers, he's a star, and that's just what he does. Like, what do you expect him to do? Not get kicked out of a game? He comes here. He's in the lineup to do exactly that. And when he does, unfortunately, I think we kind of see where this is all going. Like, he's going to do something where someone gets seriously hurt.
Yeah,
like seriously hurt. If he came to his first game back from the minors, think about that. As a player of his ilk, you go down to the minors and you're learning, hey man, like, we like your size, we think you can play in the league. We just need to get this out of the game. We can't have you taking By the way, lost in all that is that the major was called in a 2-1 game for the Rangers where they just killed 6 penalties with like 8 minutes to go. So Stars spent the 5 out of the last like 8 or 9 minutes on the power play. So a horrible penalty on about like a DEFCON 20 level. one that if Barry Trotz was coaching the Islanders and a player took that penalty, they might not play ever again. But a player like that, so it's a terrible penalty to take, but it's just who he is, and he comes into the lineup after being sent down to weed that out of his game, and he fails miserably at it. And yet he has a positive impact on the game. That's what the story has been. So when he does hurt somebody, it's going to be his fault for sure, but it's also going to be the fault of the way that his career has been covered by a lot of people. It's not just, the people at the Post or the people on ESPN or anyone. This is a product of the entire hockey media and the league, the direction of the league right now, that this guy's getting so much press that, like, why wouldn't he charge into somebody who's in a vulnerable position? Like, that's what he's supposed to do, because the next morning in the paper he reads, I had a positive impact on that game I just got thrown out of.
And the funny thing is, that's like a sort of a time-honored tradition for a lot of guys like this, where they come in and they're fighting and smashing everybody against the boards, and they're a force of nature, and then eventually at some point some coach or the GM or whatever, or maybe another player on the team is like, hey man, listen, we really need you to stop doing this and start playing hockey. Because we can't keep killing penalties with you, and we can't keep having you thrown out of the game. You're really not helping us out there. And a lot of times those guys turn around and become like really productive players. But that seems like a bit too far so far for Matt Rempe. This has been a fun time for the Rangers. Capo again was traded. There's been stories about how the culture inside the Rangers is really rotten, and apparently at the Garden, not this to be a surprise to anybody, but there's apparently like a lot of rules that people need to follow. Like, we talk about loose rules all the time, but apparently like a staffer got fired for having dinner with a Ranger on the road, even though the Ranger invited them out. And the Rangers are still pissed off that Jim Ramsey, who was their longtime equipment manager for a long time, was let go, I think, before last year. And he's with the Canadians now because he knows Jeff Gorton from their time with the Rangers. But like, apparently that was like the first kind of real sort of fuse lighting was the letting go of Jim Ramsey, and Chris Kreider was pissed off about it and everything. He's on the trade block now. I mean, he might be next, who knows? But it's a good thing they had Matt Rempe destroying guys during a game against the Dallas Stars, because now they're okay, so we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
They're fine. That's what did it. Yeah. And like you said, there was an article in Gannett from Vince Ricogliano kind of outlining, I think very surface level. I think there's a lot more to this story to keep an eye out for when it comes to the Rangers and the room and the current regime. So I don't think this one's done yet, but as you said, like pretty toxic culture, not just in the locker room, but off the ice too. But it's definitely Lou Lamoriello's fault. He's the real despot here. He's a bad guy for the way he treats his team by making them shave before work or wear a suit, and doesn't let the assistant coaches talk to the media because he's such a bad guy. And Bo Horvat wasn't allowed to wear 53 also because he doesn't allow players to wear over 40, despite the fact that there's a few of them that wear numbers over 40, but that's just don't let facts get in the way of some good slander. But I just think it's so funny when we have like hard facts and evidence and reporting and all pointing to something like this. That isn't picked up on. It's not, oh man, like maybe there are some nefarious characters in this game, and we should maybe go after them rather than focusing on the pipe, like the material, the pipe dream of bringing down Lou Lamoriello because of what he weirdly has been projected to represent. He for some reason, Lou is like the poster child of hockey's toxic culture, despite never having like an incident like that at least that comes to my mind, at least with the Islanders, I should say, pop to my mind. And yet we have some hard, cold facts and the team across the river where maybe we should look into this a bit more. And no quitting that team, no quitting New York. They're just being ruthless trading their captain, where it's over here it's treated like a war crime. Send Lou to the Hague for.
There are going to be some shady characters in this industry, as there are in any industry, and it may surprise some to find that maybe, and I'm not saying that he is, but it's possible that a shady character and a bad manager might just be the babyface GM that at one time was a Little League's World Series champion and not the 82-year-old bald guy who's scowling his way through games and doesn't like mustaches and long hair. I'm just saying that.
Yeah,
it's funny you bring
that would be a shock. That
would be a shock. Yeah, of course. The number thing, real quick. I just got to say, because I texted you this the other day. Obviously, lose numbers rules are what they are. The Horvat thing is still funny because that person obviously doesn't know who Casey Cizikas is, but that's another story for another time. But the lose numbers thing is always kind of funny to me. And I was watching the Sharks Oilers game the other day, and it was a very entertaining game. And at one point, the Sharks had a line of all three guys wearing 70s. It was Celebrini, Tyler Toffoli, and I forget who the guy on the other side was. Maybe Mike Hoffman. I'm not sure. They were all wearing 70s. And, listen, you can think what you want about Lou or his numbers or his rules or whatever, but it looked fucking stupid. I'm not going to lie. These three forwards all in this wearing number 70. It looked friggin' stupid. Like, it looked dumb. Like, they look like defensive linemen. Like, come on. What are we doing? There's not one guy who could wear a single digit number on this line. I don't know. It kind of bugged me. But at that moment, I kind of felt.
No, that's how you grow the game. That's how you grow the game. That's let these guys wear mathematical equations on their jersey. That's how they want to express themselves. But
yeah, exactly.
And it's it really just tells you like how incredible the Rangers PR machine works. Is that and in this day of access journalism, if you go back and you look at the way the Kakko trade was covered, you'll notice that basically everybody verbatim covered it, said the same exact thing, which makes you wonder where it's coming from. And secondly, they've now traded their captain and their second overall pick from a draft like 4 or 5 years ago. And you've heard, in the past week, I've heard them lauded on the radio by Elliot Friedman as being very patient. The Rangers are trying to be patient right now. I know they just traded their captain, but they're being patient.
Right.
And then they traded Kakko like 48 hours later, and the party line was, now the Rangers they just want the dust to settle. They want the waters to be calm. They want to see if this group could be the one that pulls them out of this crisis. There's nothing patient about trading your captain and your second overall pick from 4 years ago in the middle of a 3-11 stretch. And there's certainly nothing about calming the waters there either. But because if once again, slap these stories on another team. Let's say it's Minnesota Wild. This is going down. The coverage is, man, it's a tailspin. It's toxic. That I don't know if anyone wants to show up to the rink anymore. But with these guys, it's they're just trying to calm the waters. That'll be fine. They just gotta get Rempe in. They just gotta get Rempe in.
Yeah, he's definitely good at calming the waters.
Let's tread water until we can get that guy back up from the minors.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the Kakko trade and after this, I promise we'll move on to the Leaf stuff. But the thing about the Kakko trade to me, well, first of all, it's important for everybody to know, and we know it's important because this was in every single story that came out. Much to the point you just made, that this wasn't a reaction to Kakko's comments following his scratching, and it was totally not at all related to the fact that he basically said,
I don't even know if they saw the comments.
Yeah. It's definitely not related to him being like, why the fuck are you scratching me? These guys suck worse than I do. What are you talking about?
Like that video of those two guys who were interviewed after John Gotti got arrested. What murders?
It's definitely not about that, and everybody covering the Rangers wants you to know it's definitely not about that. So that's important to know. But here's the thing. I come not to bury Kaapo Kakko, who by all means seems like a totally okay player. I mean, yes, he was drafted second overall. I'm not even here to bury the Rangers because the guy's unhappy. He wants to be traded. Apparently they tried to trade him for a while. They got something for him, whatever. The people I'm here to bury though are the ones you just talked about a few minutes ago. The prospect grifters, the prospect perverts that we like to call them.
The professional liars.
The professional liars.
As our friend Matt has geniusly coined, and I advise everybody from now on, when you read an article by anybody who the name's coming into your head, instead of saying, TSN insider or
Yeah.
Sportsnet prospect expert just say, when they say, "Oh, we welcome so and so to the show," just say "professional liar" in your own head, and it changes the complexion of what they're about to say completely, and it makes it hilarious. But anyways.
Yes, all of these people are professional liars, and for a year they lied to us about this, how this guy was going to change the face of the league, how he was going to transform the Rangers, how the choice between him and Jack Hughes was incredible. Like, oh my God,
choosing between Jaromir Jagr or Steve Yzerman.
Right. How these two teams are going to be battling it out for years in the same division. Oh my God, it's going to be, Messier versus Brodeur all over again. And the shades of the 94 Eastern Conference final, blah, 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 all that stuff for a year. And then when it was pretty evident that he wasn't going to get to that level, it was like, well, you just got to give him time. You just got to give him time. You got to dude, the guy's been in the league for 5 years. You just got to give him time. He's going to get there. He's getting there. You can see he's turning the corner. He's going to get there. He's never going to get there. Yeah, and if he does, he's going to get there with Seattle. These people are the worst. I really, truly hate these people. I cannot make it clear enough that these people are the worst. And if I tweeted something like this, or on Blue Sky, if I can get back all of the hours that of mine and yours and everybody's that were wasted by people telling us how great this guy was going to be before he even set foot in the National Hockey League, I would be a happy man. I want that time back. And all these guys, the Sam Cosentinos and all these other prospect grifters that make their living doing this shit, I don't know what type of punishment there is in the world for you, but I hope you find it soon, because I cannot stand this. And it's not just Capo. Again, Capo is a totally okay player. Like, that's it. But the way this guy was talked about before he was drafted and before he went, and now it's like, well, they didn't develop him well enough. They didn't do the right thing by him. So if you left him in Hartford for 2 years, that would have been okay. Now, and meanwhile, had they done it at the time, the people would have been like, what are you doing? You got to play this guy. He's a superstar. I have no patience for these guys at all. And I don't know. I can't take it. And I don't, I could say that and at the same time be excited for Cole Yzerman or whatever, but
you're not saying, oh my God, I can't wait for the next 10 years of Cole Yzerman and Gabe Perreault going up against one another. You're just saying, man, I like this guy because he's on my team. Yeah. And he looks like he might be a good player. Maybe he won't be because he's 18 and who knows.
And it's not just an Islanders thing too. I got to shout out another friend of ours, Joe Buono, and his Isles Fix newsletter, which you should all be subscribed to if you're not. When Oliver Wahlstrom got picked up on waivers by the Bruins, he went back and watched the drafting of him. And you should have heard the stuff people were saying about him. He's got a shot like Mike Bossy. He's got the best shot in the draft right now. What a steal this is. What a superstar. I forget who else they compared him to. I don't know if it was not Bergeron, but some other big shot, winger or something like that. And it's like, and Joe was like, what were these people talking about? It's just, I was reading it. I was literally reading it at work. Like I do a lot, with Isles Fix. And I was laughing because I was just like, these people, I don't get it. How do they live with themselves? How do they do this?
It's because there's no accountability.
No.
It's so great. It's so
crazy.
Being a pundit, man, there's no better job.
I know.
Than just being a pundit. Do you remember when the Kakko hype really hit its peak? There's a specific moment in Kakko lore. It was when he dangled around some other teenagers in a Traverse City prospect tournament. Yeah. And everyone's like, oh my God, he is Jagr. Yeah. It's Jaromir Jagr, except he's wearing number 45. This is incredible. Wow. He's playing against teenagers who aren't going to make the NHL. You need to fill those rosters with guys who are playing, never going to sniff even the ECHL. Right. And but that's what we hold their head on. And every 6 months when they release the prospect rankings, Islander fans are like, Lou is criminal for letting the prospect pool get this thin. And there's definitely some credence to the fact that the Islanders don't have enough organizational depth or haven't brought along enough young players. I get that, but the point is that just because Scott Wheeler or Sam Cosentino says that the Islanders they don't have any prospects, or that Isaiah George is the number 12 ranked prospect on the number 32 ranked team farm system in the league, doesn't mean that they're right. More often than not, they are uproariously wrong. And but don't worry, they're not going to take any flack for it. There's no mea culpa here or anything like that. It's just on to the next segment, where we got Elliot Friedman talking about headlines on Saturday night.
That's right. Real quick, it was Bill Guerin was the other Oliver Wahlstrom comparison.
A Bruins fan, a Bruins writer, tweeted that he's got like he like hit somebody or whatever and made a nice play. It's like, man, I've seen these tweets before. And then somebody under replied, he's got some Taylor Hall to his game.
Oh my
I got
God.
that tweet sent to me. Former number 1 overall pick and
Sure.
former league MVP Taylor Hall and Oliver Wahlstrom. And when I saw that tweet, I was like, oh, let me see how he's doing tonight. Maybe he's got a goal or something. And I just noticed, oh yeah, there is a similarity between Taylor Hall and Oliver Wahlstrom. They both wore number 71 for the Boston Bruins. So I wonder if that's why he thinks that.
Yeah, I think that probably has something to do with it. 71. That's so funny. But it's not just Wahlstrom. Again, this is from the same Isles Fix newsletter. Jacob Skarek was said to be the best Czech netminder since Dominik Hasek. So that's from like
He's still got a chance. Still got a chance.
I guess. Woof. So yeah.
Gotta give him his time and develop him right.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, then the Islanders just didn't develop him right. It's not our fault for saying that.
Right. It's right. It's definitely the Islanders' fault for not turning him into Dominik Hasek. But there you go. Okay. And that closes another chapter of Ranger Peace Theater. Which means we can begin a new chapter of our other favorite spinoff, Master Leaf Theater. And this week's Master Leaf Theater is 2 pieces, one of which is quite long and could be an entire Masterpiece Theater on its own, or Master Leaf Theater, excuse me, on its own. It would be one of those super long Masterpiece Theaters, kind of like, Das Boot or the 2-part Sense and Sensibility. This just goes on and on and on. And we're only going to do a tiny bit of it. And it is, of course, from our friend Luke Fox Jukebox. We got to find some new people on this thing. I got a new person coming up in a minute, but I feel like we're using Luke Fox is almost too easy at this point because he just sets himself up for this kind of stuff. And this is his bread and butter. And this one in particular is really right in his wheelhouse. And of course, playing the Islanders sets up the Leafs media for articles about John Tavares. Now, again, as I've mentioned before, Tavares is having a heck of a season. He didn't have a good game on Saturday night, but none of the Leafs did. And he's having a really, really great season, which is the perfect time because he's a UFA at the end of the year, if you did not know. And so this is sort of his big expose article that I'm sure he gets, once or twice a year. And again, is by Luke Fox Jukebox. This was from December 17th, so it's a few days old, but I've been hanging on to it for just this occasion. And I'm going to read the first couple paragraphs, but the title is A Lot of Belief. Don't tell Maple Leafs Tavares he's turning back the clock. John and Aaron Tavares kickstarted a family tradition 3 summers ago. They packed their children, Jace, Axton, and Ray, the 3 names Dad scribbles onto the tape stretched around the knob of his hockey sticks in Sharpie, into the car and flee north to one of Ontario's provincial parks, a different one each September. From Labor Day weekend through the following weekend, they retreat somewhere. The hockey-obsessed, sleeps-at-the-rink patriarch can't find ice and can find peace. It's fun and simple. It's restorative and explorative. Before the final season of Tavares' contract with the Toronto Maple Leafs, the family headed to Killbear on Georgian Bay. Quote, "It was a blast. We had a great weather, and it was a great way to recharge after a really good month of August up north in Muskoka, training and getting ready for the season. Taking a little bit of a break, getting unplugged, and being with them the whole time. Being out in nature, and just exploring different places." An upbeat Tavares explained during their training camp. "We're glamping," he qualified a little sheepishly. Nothing like hearing "we're glamping" coming out at like this monotone robotic voice. So anyway, the whole story is about how Tavares and his family unplug before the season starts every summer, because once he's plugged in, that's it. He's plugged. There is no unplugging this man because he, again, is a robot and he needs that electricity to charge his batteries. I'm going to link this. Obviously, you have to read this thing. And if you can, please find yourself some classical music and put it on while you're reading it, because then you can have your own Master Leaf Theater at home, sort of like the home version of Family Feud that we all have somewhere in the back of our closet. This is incredible. I sent this to you. It was a while ago, but I'm not sure if you read this, but man, it just goes on and on and on. It's crazy.
It's one of it's it's such a good bit of Master Leaf Theater because I can't get past the qualifier before the word patriarch, which is hilarious that he even uses the word patriarch, but to qualify it with the hockey obsessed slinks at the rink patriarch, you could just say professional hockey player Tavares wants to get away from the game before the next 8 months because that's what he's going to be doing for the next 8 months. But no, it's it really harkens back to one of my favorites ever when he talks about Fraser Minton loving hockey so much. And he used similar qualifiers to describe Minton and Morgan Riley as Morgan Riley glistened and said, "You really love the game, don't you, kid?" It's just incredible stuff. A story about a professional hockey player taking a vacation with his family before going to work for the next 8 months has turned into this.
Right.
And once again, we call on the editors to send us the feedback for articles like this, which I, obviously copy editors and editors are the first to go in all these sort of layoff situations. And, but I would love to know the feedback here. Hey, is this just a story about, how this guy recharged before the season with a vacation? Like how we did too? Like how I took my family to the Hamptons or something? Is that what's going on here? Oh, you went to, this is a story about if you were still in the office on maybe the day after Labor Day, you's talking at the water cooler to a coworker. Hey, how was your long weekend? Good, we went to Maine. Oh, sweet, I love Maine. Me and my family, we went to visit our family down in DC. Oh, cool. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. See you.
Yeah. It's really not more complicated than that. People go on vacation. I mean, my wife is a teacher. Like, we go on vacation in August, because she's gonna have to go back to work in September, and it's hard. It's hard work, and so yeah.
Can you imagine Luke Fox Jukebox coming to interview you afterwards? And like Tavares is a robot, and he's got an amulet to prove it. Like I know that, but and I do believe him when he is the type of guy that I don't think reads anything at all on this kind of stuff, because he is so process and routine driven that anything that can throw his routine off is he avoids it like 5G basically, right? But if you were reading this article, like like I said, if Luke Fox was interviewing you after your vacation in August with your family, and you read him describe you in that way, would your first call not be to a lawyer or to the cops or something? I would just be like, I get this guy's got a job to do, but he's not even doing it. He's doing something completely different from his job, I think, here. So I'm a little concerned for me and my kids whose name I write on my stick, which he got that point across as well. Like this is he's also giving away like where our family likes to go away on vacation before.
Yeah, that's a little weird too.
It's all a little strange here. Yeah, well. Sure. Yeah. No, John, as your lawyer, I would say it's a little weird, but there's got to be precedent for this sort of thing for us to like really look into. Oh, here's 800 other articles where he does the same thing to not just the captain of the Toronto Maple or former captain of the Toronto Maple Leafs, I should say, but also guys who maybe played 18 games for us, the Michael Amadios and Alex Galchenyuks of the world.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you just be like, what is going on here? Yeah. But yeah, no, Isaiah George, he's not been in the league long enough to know, but he should have ran really quickly when he saw who was taking that picture of him in the bowels of the Air Canada Center the other day, because there was someone lurking, and he's probably going to be connecting him to the Maple Leafs at some point.
Oh,
in
definitely.
the next few games, maybe even
as a throw in to a Noah Dobson or Nelson
exactly.
trade.
It could be Nelson and George. Maybe they can get George Nelson for a first round pick.
It's just it's incredible, and again, I highly recommend it. People reading it, not only because it is an entirely one basically self-contained Master Leaf Theater, but my favorite part, and I can't even read it out because it wouldn't make any sense in an audio version, but my favorite thing about this article by Luke Fox Jukebox is that embedded right in the middle of it is a tweet also from Luke Fox Jukebox that says, among Canadian NHLers this season, Tavares ranks 4th in even strength goals, blah, blah, blah. And that's all fine and good for this season. But then it is accompanied by a picture from John Tavares's Wikipedia page talking about how many gold medals he has in international competition. So it's a tweet. It has nothing to do with anything. None of the tweet is not about, it's just basically Luke Fox saying he should have been on the Four Nations Cup team, or whatever. And like, that's fine. But like, this is by far the most heavy-handed cornball ass way to do this. And
by a totally objective journalist from the rights holder, which is obligated to broadcast the game from a totally objective point of view.
Seriously.
I thought that was hilarious too. Like, and like, these aren't Olympic there is an Olympic medal there, and I wanted to put an asterisk next to that, be like, yeah, he missed a lot of that tournament, Luke.
We're going to have to put a moratorium on Luke Fox jukebox articles, because we have to give this guy a break and find some new people if we're going to do more massive leave theaters. But fortunately, we have somebody right here, and this comes straight from NHL.com. And it is, of course, about John Tavares's upcoming contract, which, he hasn't not signed one with the Leafs. We talked about this in the summer. Like, what happens if he goes in as a UFA? And what's really funny, and other people have pointed this out, Dom pointed this out over at Lighthouse Hockey too, is that he keeps saying he wants to stay with the Leafs. I would love to stay with Maple Leafs, Tavares says, is actually the title. And like Dom says, this time, I believe him. He probably does want to stay with the Leafs. Unlike the last time. You're not going to fool me again. And so a lot of people are, saying like, yeah, we've heard this stuff before from this guy. Although, again, it seems like he's probably telling the truth this time. But and the article isn't really anything special. It's blah, blah, blah. It starts with him saying, Dateline Toronto. John Tavares has no regrets about the life-changing decision he made almost 7 years ago to leave the New York Islanders and join the Toronto Maple Leafs. Anything but. Quote, aside from not being able to bring the Stanley Cup here, it's been everything I could hope for, the Maple Leafs forward said this week to NHL.com. In fact, it's been even better than I thought, to be honest. Okay, good for you. That's all good. But what really got me, and I was reading it, it's kind of, one eye rolling, one eye reading it, but what really got me was this bit towards the end. And this is where, I find it very funny that people are still kind of Islanders fans case, for the whole thing and the booing. And obviously they're going to be playing at UBS Arena on January 2nd. So like, it's going to happen again, and he's going to get booed again. And this was where this article went from being like, yeah, whatever, to being like, all right, you know what? Go to hell. And so this is the part that Zeisberger writes. At the same time, he continues to take the high road when it comes to the Islanders. Despite being razzed repeatedly the past 6+ years whenever he plays against them in New York for his decision to leave and come to Toronto, he says he'll always be appreciative of the franchise that picked him number 1 overall in the 2009 entry draft. Quote, that place means a lot to me, he said, and the fans do as well. They're very passionate and protective of their team and their club, and tremendous history and tradition is there as well. And obviously what they built in the 1980s and the pride behind that, I think is pretty spectacular. So I got to feel that in my 9 years there, and they really embraced me and were a big part of my development on and off the ice. I'll always be grateful for that and always appreciate my time there. I'll never take that for granted either. I'm extremely grateful. I mean, it's a big part of who I am today. So my time there was great. So obviously this has been programmed into Tavares and sort of like Chat GPT. You plug this in and he just says it. But like the idea that Zeisberger writes that he continues to take the high road when it comes to the Islanders, because as you all know, and as Mike Zeisberger clearly knows very well, Islanders fans always take the low road, and they're scum and they're garbage, and they boo this beautiful, wonderful man who decided to come home and play for his favorite hometown team, the Toronto Maple Leafs. And so while whatever John Tavares is saying here is basically par for the course for Tavares, and it's all very boring, as he is often, does, Mike Zeisberger can take a long walk off a short pier. Like, go fuck yourself, Zeisberger. Seriously. Like, the way this is worded just made me so mad about taking the high road because we're taking the low road, apparently. Okay, well, I plan on dying mad at this guy. So if that's taking the low road, then I'll take the low road all day, every day. I don't know if you got a chance to read this, but this whole article just made me laugh as well. I mean, it was pretty boring until that part. And I was like, come on, really?
Yeah, and it's, I mean, in sports, it's fun to take the low road because we're fans and that's what we're supposed to do. and every other fan base gets the benefit of the doubt when it comes to this kind of stuff, as we saw earlier this year when they were lapping it up on Hockey Night in Canada when Philip Broberg and Dylan Holloway were booed by Oilers fans. And
Right.
everyone's so excited. Oh, we got Ducks versus Flyers circled on our calendar
Yep.
because Cutter Gauthier comes back to play the Flyers after what he did. And oh man, you don't want to spurn a Flyers fan. They might boo you.
How great was it that Winnipeg Jets fans were chanting "Where is Rutger" when they played the Penguins? Like, isn't that awesome? What an atmosphere that was!
And they chanted "U.S. backup" at a goalie. I don't even know which goalie it was, and that was one of the funniest things you've ever seen. You're not a hockey fan if you don't appreciate that stuff. But when it comes to what they do on the island, it's a step too far. Booing this guy after 6 years of torture. But that part pisses me off. But my favorite part about that article is the beginning, which is, Ty, do you have any regrets here? Like, how's it gone moving, to Toronto? Well, aside from the one thing that's most important, winning in the playoffs and bringing some sort of respectability back to this franchise that hasn't won a Stanley Cup since 1967, despite how they're covered. No, it's been great. It's been great. Yeah, we got out of the first round that one time.
Yeah,
in my first 6 years, which was great. Even though we've made the playoffs each one, and we've had a team gets over 100 points every year, and it's one of the Stanley Cup favorites. But yeah, no regrets, man.
Right.
No, none at all. I've won as many playoff series with this team as I did with my old team, so it's pretty great.
Yeah, I mean that no regrets except for that one series where we lost to the Columbus Blue Jackets for no reason whatsoever. Okay, that's awesome. Thanks. Yeah. So again, I'm going to link to this, and it's just, I don't know, it's. I guess I shouldn't be surprised, but I am. I don't know why. I guess surprise wasn't the right word, but it was just so funny to me to read that. He's taking the high road.
He's taking the high road.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so.
Well, I can't wait for the second, because I now look forward to these pieces that come out about the booing and the grudges and all that, and the discourse that follows now. It's just so tired and old and repetitive, and it's I can't wait for it.
Yeah.
For us, I can't wait for the Islander fans to take the low road once again on January 2nd when this guy comes to town. And it's just it's kind of like that Rempe thing, right? Like the story here is that the Leafs have been a failure since he's moved there, right? It's not. The story here is that he's taking the high road. He's going high while the Islander fans go low.
Right.
That the lack of success is just a little footnote in the real story here, which is one of moral superiority up there in Toronto.
Exactly. It's the people booing him.
Yeah, that's not what the sport's about. Sport isn't about winning the Stanley Cup. It's about being a good person in the locker room and
taking your kids to national parks
exactly.
before the season starts.
Yes.
So there you go. But yeah, so that'll do it for an impromptu but expected episode of Master Leaf Theater. We are gonna finish up here. It's been a long episode. We've had some technical issues today, so we can finish. Oh, sorry, no, we can't. Not yet. Real quick, in case you haven't heard, the Vancouver Canucks all hate each other. Well, actually, not all hate each other. I guess just JT Miller and Elias Pettersson hate each other, and now it's affecting the team. Neither guy is talking about it, but Quinn Hughes and Rick Tocchet are, and the Canucks are having a similar season, not too dissimilar to the Islanders. They obviously have a much better record than the Islanders do, but they just can't really stay on track. And now this is really kind of creeping in to how things work. And as I saw on Blue Sky, somebody wrote, "Oh, you're telling me that the weird introvert and the high school jock don't get along?" Wow, who could see that coming? It doesn't take too. You have to be a detective to know who's who in that situation, but it was pretty funny. And somebody asked Pettersson about it after they lost in overtime to the Senators, and he was like, "No, I don't know why people keep making shit up." And then as he left, he was like, "Read the room!" Like he yelled it back at a reporter for asking him, having the temerity to ask him about this. But the coach and the captain are talking about it. So why are you talking? And then of course Miller is just like, "No, I'm not talking about it." He's not talking to any reporters at all because he's like a early high school loner type, I guess. I don't know. This is real quick. We're just throwing this in, but like, have you caught any of this? I mean,
oh yeah, it's just another I don't even know how to even explain it, right? Like the way that every team is covered is so different. And in Vancouver, it's a soap opera, like it's covered like a soap opera.
Right.
But when JT Miller, he left the team for like a month because of this, or they think because of this to like let take the calm the waters to steal a line. And he comes back, and this is all, you know, it's a tire fire, and everybody has been talking about Quinn Hughes' captaincy. Like he's going to be the captain at the Frozen Face-Off for Team USA. They think they want him to be because he's been such a good captain in Vancouver, despite the second and third best player on the team being at each other's throat. And Rick Tocchet, what a coach he is! Like this is the type of guy that the Canucks needed, because he's not going to take this kind of, you know, he's not going to let that kind of shit fly. And yet here it is, very publicly flying, and nobody's like, oh man, we might have got this one wrong. But to bring it up again, this isn't this kind of stuff happening in Vancouver. Is, you know, it just happens, you know. But if it's part of professional sports, if you're with somebody every waking moment from September to June every year, and traveling and staying at hotels and playing with them and all that kind of stuff, like you're bound to get these kind of situations. And that's what people are like, the party line is, which is crazy, because I can't recall a more public situation like this, where everybody in hockey knows these two guys hate each other, and it's now a story. But it's just what happens. Whereas if it happened with let's say a non-Canadian team, or even like a smaller market team, let's say the Columbus Blue Jackets, it's just fodder for the insiders. They're just like, oh my god, this organization is a hellhole. It's tough. These small market teams, it's one thing for them to get players like this, and now they got to keep them, and they're not going to be able to. What a shame. So it's just the way that things are covered drives me up a wall here. And it does make you appreciate the way the Islanders go about their business, because let's just say when the Islanders were worse than they are now, and Rick DiPietro was in that locker room, and some other folks, like, I don't think that there was there wasn't, and this is about Rick kind of in like the final stages of his career, not when he was in his prime. But that stuff would kind of leak out, that he was rubbing some guys the wrong way. The team put him on waivers, and the Islanders went on that run to the playoffs soon thereafter. And I can't remember who it was, what player it was, so I won't even say to put words in their mouth, but they were like interviewed afterwards. They're like, wow, you guys look like a fresh bunch now. And the player was like, yeah, I wonder why. And that, that stuff kind of, it doesn't even come into the psyche of anyone, because it was the Islanders. Whereas, of course, if it happens in Vancouver, it turns into this soap opera. And then you got the insiders step up and say, guys, relax. It's not that big a deal. And it becomes a fight between whether it's a real story, or if it's just something that's made up. But very, like, we can see this stuff happening with our eyes too. Like we saw, I've seen the Pedersen interview. I saw the Tocchet and the Hughes interviews. This is bizarre.
It is bizarre.
Bizarre stuff. And it's let's just be careful with this. All right. We don't really know what's exactly going on. What?
Right. Well, the season started with Friedman being like, if I'm Elias Pettersson, I am telling my family, don't tell me about this stuff. You know, I don't want to know about what people are saying out there. Like, that's how the season started for this guy.
Right.
And it's only gotten more and more bizarre. But it's insane. And, you know, I mean, Vancouver is such a weird market because they're the biggest game in town for the Canucks. Like, that's who it is. You know, you got the BC Lions, but they're not quite on the same level. And so it's a huge deal anytime any Canuck does anything. And like the fact that these two guys are apparently not getting along, but then they're also on the same line together, sometimes on the same power play together. So it's very funny, and it's seeping into the games now. And I don't know, it's a little crazy, but to me, the funniest thing about this, and again, you know, the Islanders aren't the cause of this, obviously, but there is an Islanders connection. To me, all I can think is that Bo Horvat is looking at this stuff and just being like, oh man, am I glad I got out of there. Like, that was so
God, that lose-lose trade happened.
Yeah.
because
the famous lose trade that may or may not have saved Bo Horvat's sanity.
But
like,
yeah,
oh my God.
you could just the point I was trying to make, and I did it in a very roundabout way, was that you could just tell like what teams are able to get in front of stories like this, and or what in the way insiders get in front of stories like this and put the shields up by who's you can tell that if they're doing that, those GMs and agents are they're the ones that are helping out behind the scenes with the like the tips and the insider stuff. And when it's not, those are the ones where they'll just be like, "Oh, well, Columbus is an absolute, tire fire there. Nothing they can do about it." But if it's Vancouver, it's guys, let's take a deep breath. Let's not jump to conclusions here. Even
I want
though
to be respectful of
we got to be
here.
respectful of the guys in the room and the human element. Because if I don't say that, I'm not going to hear from Jim Rutherford if they claim David Desharnais on waivers.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're never going to hear from Patrick Alvin telling us what Jim Rutherford told him to tell us ever again. So
we won't know whose waters are being calmed.
Yeah. Like, all the waters are calm now. Everybody's Rangers' waters are calm. Ottawa's waters are calmed.
It's just a lake. It's just a beautiful lake.
Yes.
Right now in the league.
It's fantastic.
The Rangers are fine. Predators are fine.
Yeah.
Vancouver Canucks are fine. Patrick Wise having fun, talking to his GM.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful scene out there, just in time for the next outdoor game coming to you New Year's Eve.
I had no idea who was playing in it. I completely forgot until the Islanders played the Blackhawks. Did you see who's playing in that game?
I mean, I knew I had totally forgotten about it until that game. But like you said, I knew at one point, but I had totally forgotten about
it. I was like, oh, it makes all right. I remember the Blackhawks getting it. They must be playing like are they playing Colorado? Maybe they're playing like and like someone good, maybe. There's definitely somebody good coming to town for this. They wouldn't waste it on a bad team. Is it going to be maybe Los Angeles, Vegas?
Right.
Oh, it's St. Louis. Okay.
Yeah. Huh. A couple of real league powerhouses here.
So the Sabres in there just as a third team.
Yeah, right. Why don't we have a Sabres Red Wings game too?
Yes. Well, that'll be next year. I'm sure it'll be announced on two exciting young upstarts.
Exactly. They're just ready to turn the corner there. But yeah, so and it's New Year's Eve too, during the day or at night. So I'm sure most people are going to completely forget about it.
That should be a lot of fun. Ratings bonanza.
Exactly. Exactly. But okay, now we're really going to close it up. Again, we've made this a little bit longer for our two readings, but I thought it was really, really good and a lot of fun. And we are having some technical issues here. This is it for us this week. But there is a one other thing coming out this week from us is a new episode of Weird Islanders, the podcast, coming out later. We already said it's the Robin Leonard episode that we did first thing before the season started, and he's again had some more messages on Twitter. We don't need to rehash it, but just we hope that he's safe and is getting some help. With a lot of issues that he's experiencing. But the episode is about us talking about how much we loved his time with the Islanders, and we're huge fans still. So look for that later on this week. As I said before, this week is every holiday under the sun almost. So we got Christmas on Wednesday, Hanukkah starts on Wednesday, Kwanzaa starts the next day. So whatever you're celebrating, wherever you're celebrating it, whoever you're celebrating with, we hope that it is happy and safe and festive and joyous, and you're getting all the love that you can get, and you're giving it back to those that you love. And we thank you so much for listening to us and spending a little bit of your holiday week with us. We hope you've enjoyed it. Become a member at patreon.com/Islanders Anxiety for ad-free episodes and bonus content, or join for free to get announcements and our weekly release calendar. Find us everywhere: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Audible.com, iHeartRadio, YouTube Music, wherever you get your podcasts. Please leave us a review where you can. Our theme song is Morning Haze by Family Dinner. Listen to more of their music on Spotify and look out for their new album, God Looks Out for Fools. Read Lighthouse Hockey every single day for most up-to-date Islanders news and discussion. Islanders Anxiety podcasts are part of the Fans First Sports Network. Shop VintageIceHockey.com. Try wines from the Pinot Project, available at local wine shops near you and at UBS Arena. Mike, where can everybody find you on Twitter?
The Big Lebowski with 2 E's. And thank you and happy holidays, all that. Thank you for bearing with me. The technical difficulties were very bizarre, and they were on my end. I don't really know what's going on. And also, of course, having the baby with me for most of the episode. So I do thank you for sticking with me and being patient for the background noise. And if I was a little distracted at times, I appreciate it. So But yeah, happy holidays.
No, it's fine, and I think we should hear her thoughts on Matt Rempe being called up from Hartford.
That's been the best part, is that Emmy Lou, in her nearly month of life, the Rangers are clipping it like a 3, and I think they've won like twice. So
Yeah.
maybe she's changed everything.
Fantastic. She was what we needed this whole time.
Yes.
So there you go. But yeah, so happy holidays to everybody. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week. So the Islanders Penguins game on Sunday is at 5:30. So we're going to record after that game and then put that episode out for Monday, for New Year's Eve and New Year's week. So thanks a lot for listening. We'll be back then. Have a happy holiday, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.